Hello, and welcome to Close the Door and Come Here, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast with heavy leanings toward our two favorite characters, Jaime and Brienne. Hi, I am Chicky, and I am Chicky on Blue Sky, and today I am joined by Clotho.
Hi, I'm Clotho, and you can find me at Clotho Spindle on Blue Sky.
And Kama.
Hi, I'm Kama, and you can find me at Kama Splice on Blue Sky.
And today we are covering Jon's 5th chapter in A Dance with Dragons. I better be the 5th. Here's hoping. As usual, we're going to do a spoiler warning for books and show on this. I'm not sure what will come up in this discussion. Maybe not a lot. I guess we'll see. So we open up at Castle Black with Jon, and definitely things have changed since his last chapter because Stannis is gone. And yet, it's funny how Jon is afraid to move back into the Lord Commander's chambers because Stannis was in them. And he doesn't want to get accused of not being ready to welcome Stannis back or thinking that Stannis isn't a king or something. Isn't that crazy?
No, it's wild. And once again, I get the sense Bowen Marsh has a lot of complaints, and instead of explaining the rationale, I think Jon is just saying, nope, I'm not going to do that. Do you get that feeling?
Yes. In fact, there's a lot of that early in this chapter of what are obviously the widening rifts between Bowen and Jon. You see a lot of those cracks forming in here because Bowen Marsh, for one, is apparently really pushing to seal up the wall, to seal up the gates, and Jon obviously does not want to do that. And again, could he try to explain this to Bowen and make him understand better? Yes, but he doesn't. Also, Jon is very concerned about getting as many men to the other strongholds along the wall as possible because he is, preparing for some further onslaughts. Not just because obviously we still have Tormund on north of the wall, who they are fearing an attack from, but obviously because of the White Walkers and the Whites that are going to try to break through. And this is part of why Jon made the deal with Stannis to have Stannis man. What did he give Stannis? Three of the strongholds or something along the wall. I forget how many.
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but there's definitely a few.
Yeah. So another sign that things are not perhaps as well as they should be as they set off for Molestown to deliver some food to the wildlings. They start running into faces freshly carved in trees. And this is a really interesting detail because one of the things that I found really upsetting during the manse burning was how Melisandre, and obviously Stannis was allowing this, but she was, basically forcing the wildlings to give up their gods. And this is so obviously just a reaction to that. And then also I think, and we don't talk a lot about this, but I think also these must be meant to be spies, right? The faces, are they spying through these? Is that?
I kind of thought so.
I don't know.
It's kind of spooky, but it kind of makes sense, that they're more in tune with this. But yeah, definitely, it feels like there's more going on.
Right, and maybe meant to intimidate, because the last face they see said is more frightening than the other ones, sort of a we're still here kind of thing I got from it. I don't know.
Yeah, Jon mentions that, how he's used to seeing the faces carved in trees and in weirwoods, and that there's one that is particularly angry by Molestown. And yeah, it is pretty obviously an outpouring of that. So anyway, they get to Molestown and they start trying to hand out the food. And it's very quickly obvious, number one, that the free folk are in pretty rough shape. He talks about how his men are laughing at them because they smell, because they've been living underground in the underground tunnels of Molestown that give Molestown its name. But also, the people are very unhappy with the rations that they're getting, and you kind of can understand it because there's a woman who's having an argument with one of the men because she wants 2 apples or something, one for her son who isn't there, and they're like, you got to bring the son and produce him. And it's one of those those,
Yeah.
something that seems familiar. You see it in movies and things a lot where it's very obvious that there's, you're on borderline starvation here.
It's very catch-22 because she needs the apple for her child because her child is ill. But they're demanding that the child be there, except the child is too ill to be there. It's very bureaucratic.
It really is. It really is. Well, and it's like, you'd think somebody would be saying, "Oh, she's lying." One of the other people that know if they thought she was trying to steal food, and they're not saying that. But you can see John's perspective because John's like, "We can't even afford to give you the food we're already giving you."
There be any nutritional value in an onion? Because aren't they asking them like onions?
Yeah,
that's so funny. I had the same thought. I was like, well, there's far more calories in apples, so wouldn't you take the apples?
Have some the things I Googled. They do have some like benefits to them. It's not like they're not without, but yeah, I think you get more from
or turnip.
From an apple.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought there were apples.
40 calories, onions, 40 calories per 3.5 ounces. There are 89% water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
oh, my God.
I think you're better off with the apple.
The apple, yeah.
Yeah, 1.1 gram of protein. They're 89% water.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
They're not high calorie, I don't think.
Jeez.
But so this kind of goes on, and Jon kind of takes it. Jon is, of course, clocking who among the free folk is reacting how. He sees some of the remnants of, Harma Dogshead. Is it Harma Dogshead? I can't remember. Of Harma's crew and how they're reacting. He's clocking what the Thens are doing. The Thens are really kind of the stalwart holdouts against his men, he feels like. But he kind of flips this situation into a recruiting moment, and he's telling everyone, if you come fight for me in Castle Black, because of course they're complaining that everyone in Castle Black is getting better rations. He said, if you come fight for me in Castle Black, then you will also get better rations. And through this, he gets what did he get? 60 volunteers? I can't remember what he said.
Yeah, it's roughly that, I think.
Yeah.
It's really close to the same number of people I was thinking about that died in the... I thought he said 63, but I might be remembering...
Oh, you mean that died in the Reek?
Yeah. The number in his head.
We record these back-to-back, so we'll press off beyond chapter.
It is funny.
Yeah, it's not a lot, though, because half of them... It sounds like a lot of them are either possibly just going to be doing the odd jobs that he mentioned and can't really fight.
Yeah, well, and he said a lot of them are women, obviously. So but he does agree to take the women as fighters, and he starts out saying the women have to be 16, but the men can be 12, and then he's like, and one of the women like argues with him, and he's like, okay, fine, I'll take the 12-year-old women, taking everybody. So he does get some volunteers, and of course this doesn't really go well with Bowen and his ilk either. They do not like the idea of having wildlings in their ranks. And I can absolutely see their point on this. They're thinking, we don't want these guys literally shoulder to shoulder with us. How can we trust them? And this is one of those places where I think Jon is just not hearing that there is so much fear behind Bowen Marsh's objections. And fear is, of course... Sorry, go ahead, Kama.
What I keep seeing over and over from Jon is that he's actually a pretty good communicator with like oration, like this kind of thing, where he's speaking to the wildlings, like external communication. He's pretty good. A leader, like these qualities come out, but where he seems to just suck is working internally. Because okay, granted, this is a very modern mindset, but I'd be like, you got to meet with your, what are they? The middle managers, the Bowen Marshes. Yeah. You have to say, here's what's going on. This is why I'm seeing their issues. Like when Bowen Marsh goes, why aren't you moving into the Lord Commander's chambers? Why aren't you explaining, look, it's very delicate. I'm not sure what to do with Stannis. Do you have any thoughts here? I mean, he doesn't he treats them, these are surprises to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's a surprise to them that they're recruiting the wildlings. You know, like that should be something they should be prepared for and they should be working with. And I think it's just he has taken Aemon's kill the boy mentality thing so far that he doesn't see any way around this. And he's not, like, he had a better example. Like, Ned, like, seemed to have been a guy who did communicate fairly well with his reports. Right. I'm sorry, I'm in management. I think about these things. But, I mean, I think that's where Jon is falling down.
I think, in some respects, yes, Ned did a little better job, although Ned did some of this too. I think that's part of where, I think Ned is part of where Jon learned this. I think some of this is Ned's teaching, that he's the Lord now, and so he just tells them and they obey. And I think what he has failed to understand, and it's funny because he's thinking throughout the second half of this chapter about what matters to the free folk when they follow someone, and that is the strength of the man, and that they will follow a man. And he uses that to get the free folk on his side, and yet he doesn't seem to kind of clock that he needs to do the same exact thing with the Night's Watch. That with the Night's Watch, he treats them like they're his vassals and he's their lord and he tells them what to do and they do it. And that is not how the Night's Watch works. I mean, this is, in theory, a democratic organization. I mean, we know that it falls along the lines generally of, you know, the nobility rising to the top of the leadership, but not always. And the fact that Jon just isn't taking that into account, and he just seems to hear like that he's the Lord Commander, and so he just kind of starts commanding them. And it's one of those things where he does know better in some respect because he's using this tool with the free folk, but he doesn't seem to be using it with his fellow Night's Watchmen, and it's bad. It's gonna be bad, I guess is the way to put it. Did we have any mail on this chapter?
Yeah, we had a couple pieces here. Under general comments, kind of not specific, we have an anonymous Tumblr. Listened to the Winds of Winter speculation discussion and was grateful no one suggested frustrated A Song of Ice and Fire. Now it says investors. I don't know if this was a typo or just like a mistranslation. Maybe, I don't know if English not first language. Imagine how hard it is for GRRM in quotations. I think George ought to imagine how overwrought the fandom gets every time he mentions the Winds of Winter and just shut up about it. If he feels he must flog his other projects, he could adopt a I'm here to talk about X attitude and stick to it. And in parentheses, they put, sadly, I think he's too addicted to attention. While I'm venting, I am sick to death of Nikolai Coster-Waldau's condescending attitude towards viewer feelings on Got S8. And then in parentheses, they put spits on the ground 3 times. As he does press for King and Conqueror. How are you ever going to make, and this is a quotation they're quoting from an article, how are you ever going to make an end that's going to satisfy everyone? People weren't dissatisfied, this is their response. Many were offended and felt ill-used. I'm sure he's sick of being asked about a job he did years ago, but such is the price of achieving tremendous fame and accepting opportunities that came with it, from being part of a worldwide phenomenon. And in parentheses, they also put, would his whole darn family be popping up on screens hither and yon if he had skipped got, exclamation, the question mark. I have my doubts. The people who are breathlessly waiting for the Winds of Winter's release haven't just read some books. They're invested in A Song of Ice and Fire. Do whatever you like with this. This feels better than screaming into the actual void. I almost feel like I should Patreon the fee for a therapy session. I just want to say right off, like, if this is someone, like, I personally have not seen anything about his family, like, popping up on screens hither and yon. So I don't know if this is very specific to a region, if they are from Europe, if they're from an area. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not seeing it. So I don't know. The algorithm, I don't know what that's all about.
There are several aspects to this. Go ahead, Kama.
I was going to say, like, I hated what the show became. I mean, I stopped podcasting about the show because I couldn't stand it anymore. I get it. I do. But, like, I think I think people need to realize that actors don't have a ton of power here.
Yeah.
Like, they get hired to do the part. Maybe they have some input in the episode. Maybe they go to the director, or they want to read it a certain way or whatever. But they aren't the ones who make the decisions. It's a job. They have to be very careful what they say because, you don't want to get known in the industry as somebody who's difficult. You don't get cast in things. And it has to be very frustrating to constantly being sort of tasked with this stuff. That's what the commenter is talking about. And I mean, it's sort of like the difference between being asked about how he approached Jaime or, sort of general stuff, and then probably having to hear ad nauseum about the show, what happened to the show. So I see where the actor's coming from here. If this were a comment about D&D, that would be a whole other thing because they were very definitely had the power. But that's all I've got to say on this. And I don't know anything about his family, so,
Yeah. And I looked up, there's one article in The Independent, and you know how things are nowadays. A lot of times they get rehashed a million times by AI. It's possible a little bit that was done. I mean, there's a little bit from how I'm reading the article. There's also a little bit of the woman who wrote it kind of injecting little opinions about Game of Thrones. It makes it seem slightly more like, a lot of us feel negatively about it, but it's also her opinion tagged on to what he's saying. So I don't know if that's kind of combined. I just kind of read it very quickly where this is coming from, but I don't really get that it's that what he's saying is that super negative. It's just kind of like, everybody can have their opinion, but what can I do? And I get that, and he's frankly done so much. You're talking about, I've seen things from, he's an Optimist Guide to the Planet, which is really great. I mean, it seems like he's doing other things and moved on. But even in that, he meets a fan multiple times. I think in Japan once, and then when he's in the mountains, I think he's in a random little restaurant, and there's somebody who's working the bar, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's Jaime Lannister!" And he didn't ever get snooty. He didn't ever, never talk down about the show. It's just always very. They even mention it. I think there's a joke about Jaime Lannister crashing electric bike or something. He never seemed off put by that. So I don't know if it's just sort of a combination of how this article was worded, or just a weird comment, but I don't seem to think this is a pattern with him. It's not something I see as that.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are being really nice about this. First of all, I mean, I'll talk about the George thing second. Just off the bat, leave actors alone. They are just people with jobs. Have none of you just had a job? Just had to do a job? I mean, this man did this job so many years ago, and you want him to tell you something to give you some sort of catharsis for how you felt about how the work of art that he was in turned out? I mean, what do you want from him? I don't even understand what you could remotely be looking for from this man. And like you guys said, he had no control over what happened with the story. He had no control over it. He wants to continue to work as an actor, which means he needs to not bash and badmouth the biggest piece he was ever in. This was his biggest job ever. This is when the poor guy dies, this will be the obituary that he was in Game of Thrones. I mean, and you want him to what? Bash the fucking thing because you didn't like it? I mean, none of us liked it. The three of us hated how Game of Thrones ended, particularly for his character. I have never for a moment expected this man to express my feelings for me. I can do that. I don't need him to do it. And this is just a pan fandom thing. You need to go touch grass, honestly. And I understand that you're a listener. I don't want to turn you off. Just take this from a spirit of love, one sister to another, assuming you're a middle-aged woman like I am. You need to go outside. You need to go
I'd say seriously, watch Optimist Guide to the Planet. It's a really great show. Aside from him being in it, it is a good show. And I think you might feel a little better about things. So.
Yeah. The most annoying thing to me about this is, we were all in Game of Thrones fandom for a long time. He was always such a nice guy, really good to fans. The weird interactions that I'm sure he's had with Jaime and Brienne fans over the years. Right. And dear God, I can imagine there have been some really crazy ones. Always cool, always gracious, very nice to our particular corner of fandom.
Yeah.
And anything that I've ever seen. And nice to all
Right,
fans
because
in general,
we've known a
anything
few
that I've
people
ever
that
seen.
run into him, and they've always said kind things. Yeah,
let's just say it. We all know someone who has like met the guy socially, and he seems great. Not even anything to do with fandom. He seems like a really nice guy. I think you need to give the same grace that I'm asking you to give to him to all actors, and just realize they have no control over what's going on. You may be unhappy with how whatever they're in turns out. You need to realize that's not their fault, and you need to just let it go. And maybe also in general, start thinking of them as human beings who have a job the same way that you do. I mean, that is really what I think. George, let me say on the George thing. I mean, like, as annoyed as I am with George, I do think he does monetize the fandom. It's a little different situation with George, where George 100% calls all of these shots. I get annoyed with him too when I feel like he is, peddling something and brings up the Winds of Winter or whatever. But let me just say about George, there is an element of I'm annoyed with the way that he is, monetizing fandom and stringing people along. And, I do think he does have some moral obligation, given that he sold us all these books on the premise that there would be more. It's not a legal obligation. It's just a little bit of a moral obligation. I do think he should come out and tell his loyal fan base, no, I'm not going to finish. However, at the same time, you also need to touch grass with that. I mean, like, in the grand scheme of the world, how important is it if we don't get the Winds of Winter? I mean, it's really not that important. I mean, we all care a lot. We all really want it. But at the same time, there's a whole real life happening in George R. R. Martin's world. He is his own real whole human being. And, I'm not saying you have to completely never say, I wish he'd produce the Winds of Winter, because I say it all the time. But also, he's just a man. Give him a little grace too. Jesus.
We say it.
Can't we all just give each other? Can't we all just treat each other like human beings? That's my rant on that.
And we have another Tumblr message from Percula. Hi, I just wanted to say congrats on 600 episodes. I've been a listener since 2014, and though I've taken a few breaks over the years, I've always find myself coming back to your podcast. I've been catching up these last few months, as well as re-listening to some old favorite episodes. The 600 episode was such a joy to listen to. I never get tired of the Bear Pit chapter, and it was so lovely to hear you guys talk about Jaime and Brienne again. Thank you guys for everything that you do. Your podcast always cheers me up, makes me laugh, and makes me think about A Song of Ice and Fire characters and their relationships from new and different perspectives. I still have hope that someday, somehow, we'll get new material about Jaime and Brienne and that you guys will cover it on the podcast. Either way, thank you again for all these years. You guys are amazing. Oh, it was so sweet. Thank you.
It was really sweet. I feel like we needed that the same way we needed to do like a Jaime Brienne episode.
Yeah. It was good. It was really good after so long.
It really was. It was really nice to get back in there.
Oh, man. And that was that. No more questions for this episode.
And if you have something you would like for me to yell at you about, you can send us a message at closethedoorandcomehere.tumblr.com. You can email us at closethedoor@gmail.com.
Yes.
We are on Blue Sky at Close the Door End as well, and you can always go to our question threads on the Jaime Brienne subreddit if you would like to drop us a question about upcoming episodes, and those are posted, I'd say usually like mid-month if you want to go drop your questions about any upcoming episodes there. And as always, we are very grateful to our patrons at Patreon who help us keep the lights on. You can find us there at Close the Door. And with that, I am closing the door. Get out.